Hi, Terry here, and welcome to Times Gone Tech. And I am back out in the test range today, wearing my new ice vest from Amazon Prime, $30. Works like a charm too, you might want to think about it. It's almost 100 degrees out here, and I feel like it's no more than 85, 90. But aside from that, I am back with my Hackenbusche. And today I'm going to do a little more test shooting. So, as it turns out, in my previous video, I was having some problems with my slow match. So, and the heat and humidity started getting to me there after a while. And I had some scheduling issues going on too. I kind of rushed through the video. I wish I hadn't now, but it's online. It is what it is. Anyway, I fired a few rounds at a paper target, which I forgot to show you. I was shooting high, but I did hit it. And at a watermelon, a 2-liter soda bottle, and all that. Well, the question came up about effectiveness on the medieval battlefield. Just how effective would this thing be out actually on a medieval battlefield? So I'm back to find out, and you know what that means. Meat target. This is the Paul Harrell meat target, named after the late great gun YouTuber Paul Harrell, who invented the idea. And the idea here is to recreate the torso of a human. Now, most people these days, when they're doing that, they'll use ballistics gel. In fact, you can go on the internet and buy ballistics gel, dummy torsos with artificial ribs and a fake brain and a fake heart and some fake blood, and they look really cool. They're very expensive also. And you might be wondering, well, why not just spend the money and buy one of those? Well, I don't know if you can eat ballistics gel or not, but I'll bet it doesn't taste as good as pork ribs, slow cooked with potatoes, onions, carrots, garlic, juniper berries, some other secret ingredients. Anyway, as it turns out, human muscle and bone and pork muscle and bone have exactly the same density. So this is actually a pretty good analogy. And the way this works is we're going to start out with some pork chops to represent the pectoral muscles, followed by a rack of pork ribs for the rib cage, then a bag of oranges to represent internal organs, soft tissue, then another rack of pork ribs to represent the back of the rib cage, and then we finish all that up with our bullet stop. And then after the test, this all gets washed up and put in the slow cooker. So let's get set up and find out. Oh, you might be wondering, Terry, where's the chain mail? Where's the plate mail? I got an answer for that. And the answer is, I don't really care how effective this would be against a medieval knight. I don't understand what this obsession with people is. How would it do against a heavily armored medieval knight on horseback? Who fucking cares? Look, by this time, the 1400s in Europe, the glory days of the knights were coming to an end. Now, they were still a formidable presence on the European battlefield, but not as much as they had been. Now, by far, as a handgunner, the vast majority of the enemy soldiers that I'm going to encounter are going to be either very lightly armored foot soldiers or basically farmers who brought their farm tools, their axes and their hammers and their pitchforks in, and they're wearing no armor at all. That's mostly who I'm going to be shooting against. Knights, forget the knights, forget it. It's not that important. They're off over there, right? They're over there. Let the archers have them. I'm going to see what this thing can do against average people on the battlefield that I'm more likely to encounter. But before I shoot the pork ribs, I want to talk just a little bit more about this. As it turns out, there's actually quite a bit to know about the Hackenbusche. And yeah, I didn't want to bore your ear off by trying to tell you all about it in one big, long, hour-and-a-half long rant. So I broke it up into smaller chunks. And I've been talking about it a little bit as I've been building it and as the build has progressed. But today what I want to talk about is the name Hackenbusche. Where'd that come from? And again, just how effective would this be in a medieval battlefield by discussing how is it actually used. Well, first, as to the name, Hackenbusche. Hackenbusche is Middle High German, and it literally means hook bush. Hacken is the origin of our modern word for hook. And it originally was, well, it still is actually, a common German surname, and it originally represented the occupation of what a person did, the hook. And it would probably referred to fishermen who were hooking fish. So, and could also probably refer to this little hook thing here, or spiky spike thing sticking out. But there were other versions of this gun that had just straight knobs sticking down. So that's kind of interesting. They weren't hooks at all. But that's probably what the original Haken hook referred to. So what about Busche? Well, modern historians quite incorrectly translate Hackenbusche as meaning hook gun. After all, this is a gun. Haken means hook. So it's a Hackenbusche or hook gun. No, it's not, because Busche doesn't mean gun. Busche is, again, Middle High German, and it is the origin of our modern word bush. Yeah, like a shrub, bush. It is also a very common German surname, mosquitoes, and it also originally referred either to a person's occupation or maybe where they lived, like, way out in the bush or something. Well, around the 1400s, one part of that bush family split off from the rest and became known as brewers, very good brewers, actually, too. They developed quite a reputation throughout Europe for being brewers of fine beer, thus Busch beer. That's actually where that came from, the Busch family, Busche, in Germany, 1400s. Okay, so why Hackenbusche? Why hook bush? Well, actually, there is no single word in German for gun. No, there really isn't. They will use, for a handgun especially, they'll use something like pistol or pistole, which both of which come from the Latin pistolium, or they'll say gun. These days, they just call it gun. But the German word for gun, the closest you can get, is Waffen. That's weapon. Thus the Luftwaffe, air weapon. But it's not called a Hackenwaffen. It's a Hackenbusche. So again, what's up with that? Well, here's what I think. I think back in the early 1400s, a member of the Busch family, let's call him Hans Busche, okay? He decided he didn't like making beer. He didn't drink beer and he didn't like brewing it. So he was really wrapped up in these newfangled pipes on a pole type handguns. And so he decided he wanted to be a gunsmith. But he had some ideas on his own about how to make these things better. So he was the one who actually originated this design. He came up with this, Hans Busche. Don't know if that was his first name, but let's call him that. Okay, fair enough. So when the gun was first introduced, people probably called it, and here's the kicker on this, okay? Hackenbusche, hook bush. But German word order is different than English. So if we translate it correctly, we need to reverse that to bush hook or Bush's hook. Get it? Bush's hook. And that was probably just the common name that people started calling it. He probably had an original name that he called it himself. And then people just started calling it Bush's hook. Okay, that's fair enough. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So how was this thing used? Well, I think, and what was this for, actually? I think most people have got the idea about how this was used in general and what this spike was for. I think they got it wrong. I think most people are getting it wrong. Now, the two accepted theories about this are that the least accepted theory is that this hook was used to hook over a wall or a parapet or something, all right? And it was used to absorb recoil when it fired. Well, that idea makes perfect sense to someone who's never fired a gun before in their lives, like the vast majority of aging academic anti-gun hippies we call professors. They probably never fired a gun in their lives, and they're telling us the history about firearms. Yeah, right. So anyway, these things don't generate enough recoil to need that kind of support. Now, you've watched the previous video. Yeah, it's got some kick to it. You've seen me kicking back a little bit, but not to the extent that I got to have a solid wall built here to hook this thing over to keep from knocking me on my butt. It's not that powerful. So we can forget that explanation immediately. The next explanation, I think, is also wrong. And I've seen some recent gun YouTubers make the same mistake. It's because they don't understand its role in history, how it was used. They were thinking that this thing is so ineffective against a heavily armored knight that when it hits his breastplate or his helmet or whatever, it might knock him silly, it might even knock him out, but it's not going to kill him. It's just going to bounce off. So then you got to run up to him and you got to whack him with that spike and finish him off and kill him. So the idea being, I will run up to the knight just as close as I can get and bang, shoot him. And then he's trying to get back up, I'll finish him off with a hook. No, no, no. Okay. The rain has not quite stopped yet, but it's slowing down. And my microphone stopped working. Yeah, that's going to be fun. I don't know how well this video is going to turn out without a microphone. But let's slog forward. Okay. Let's start with after the no, no, no. Okay. That really very mistaken belief is based on the notion that medieval battles were basically just unorganized chaos. Just everybody out running around doing whatever they want, run up to somebody, attack them, run back, you know, doing the Monty Python thing. Run forward, run away, run away. And it just didn't happen like that. Medieval battles were very well organized, actually. In fact, organization, tactics, and strategy were extremely important on the medieval battlefields. The game of chess was actually invented to help train knights to use strategy and tactics on the battlefield. So it just wasn't done that way. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm lost now. I am totally pissed off that my microphone quit. By far the most common foot soldier on the ground at the time was either lightly armored or no armored at all. It was a man with a spear or a halberd or maybe a poleaxe, and these men were organized in tight formations called hedgehogs, and their function was to deflect, slow down, or repel enemy charges, both infantry and the heavy cavalry. Now, no commander at that time worth his salt would have positioned his archers in the front of everybody else, out in the front lines exposed to the enemy fire. Archers were simply too expensive to train and maintain to risk so foolishly, right? The archers would be positioned behind the hedgehogs and then would fire over them in volley fire, or they'd be interspersed amongst the hedgehogs so they could act as snipers to selectively pick out targets. Well, by the time the Hackenbusche came on the scene, any good commander would have done the same thing with his handguns, because where archers were expensive and bows were cheap, handguns were expensive and handgunners were cheap. Especially with the Hackenbusche came along. Those things were expensive to make. Remember, just the barrel alone is composed of 8 separate pieces that have to be very precisely fit together. That takes a very high level of skill. It's not something that anybody out on a farm blacksmith can just throw together. Only a few people could do that at the time. So it makes more sense to me that as a handgunner, I would be positioned in amongst those hedgehogs so that I could fire and then reload and then fire within the relative safety of all those bristling spears around me. In which case, this, as the part of the weapon system, really becomes kind of useless. Now, not completely useless, but it's just not important. It's not like I'm going to stand in line in this hedgehog, shoot somebody, then run up out of the hedgehogs, run up to them, hit them with my spike, and then run back into the hedgehogs. I'm just not going to do that. Now, yes, our formation could be broken up, and I could find myself suddenly out in the middle of a balls to the walls, no rules melee, in which case this would come in handy as a self-defense weapon, a last-ditch self-defense weapon, while I'm hightailing it back to the safety of my own side. But that, I don't think that's what it was there for. Here's what I think it was there for. And you've seen me doing this also. I think it was there exactly for this. I think it's a hand grip. Plain and simple. It's perfectly positioned right underneath the center of the barrel. That's right where the center of mass is on this, or almost right where the balance point is. I can just rest the stock back on my shoulder then, and I can use my hand to more or less kind of aim wherever I want. So, I don't know how good the sound quality has been on this, but let's find out. I'll replay it and see. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, let's load this baby up and shoot some pork ribs. Alright, that was a good one. Look, look. Okay, let's see what kind of damage we got. Now what you didn't see was here, here, and here, which I'd fired earlier. Look, I even got some smoke here still, trapped in there. And then you saw this one. Okay, this was the latest one. And that was a good target. Good entry wound. Good entry wound. Exit wound, not so impressive right here. But it's a lot lower velocity. Okay, we hit it right here. Went through the ribs. Hit a rib actually and broke it up. Didn't pulverize it, but broke it up. Oranges, I'm still not seeing any damage from oranges. It's just missing the internal organs. That's strange. And then, there we are again. There's the bull. It hit right here. I can see the dent. So it hit right there and dropped. It went through the back ribs though, but it had no velocity left. This would not have hurt anybody standing behind them. It would have, like that, it would have maybe, because that's wood. So if they hadn't been wearing any kind of armor at all, it would have broke a rib maybe, and that's about it. But it would not have seriously injured or killed anybody standing behind them. But it went completely through the body. So it would have killed who I shot with it. So what's the takeaway from all this? Well, aside from the fact that my slow match works great, the Hackenbusche as a battlefield weapon is indeed underpowered. Okay, it's not anything to be terribly afraid of. I mean, I wouldn't want to be standing in front of it unless I was fully decked out in full combat heavy armor. Now, yeah, if you go up against a knight who's wearing padding, heavy chainmail, riveted chainmail, more padding, heavy plate armor, yeah, this thing is just going to bounce off of it. It's probably going to knock him off his horse. It's going to stun him. If it hits him in the head, it's going to put his lights out for sure and for certain, but it may not kill him. But again, the knight was not really the guy we're after. We're not aiming after him. He's becoming less important on the battlefield all the time. What we're looking for are those foot soldiers, those guys. I'm going to be aiming for the guys that's running at me with a pitchfork. Okay, that's who I'm going to shoot this thing with. And if a bunch of guys on horseback in heavy armor and shields and spears start charging at me, I'm getting behind that hedgehog. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to run up to the guy and try and shoot him. That's just suicide. That's just stupid. I'm going to get the hell out of the way. So, the slow match is great. Even working in the rain. I even hit a couple raindrops on it and saw them sizzling and kept right on burning. So I could stand out here and be shooting at this thing all day and recovering my bullets and reusing them. It's really what it comes down to. But I'll tell you what, this thing is fun to shoot. It shoots really high, but again, that's just me because I'm not accustomed to how to aim it. I think I'm aiming straight like this, and I'm probably aiming like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm like that when I think I'm like this, and then when I try and compensate, I go down like that. So anyway, you just got to get out here and fire the thing, is really what it comes down to. Okay, so rain has stopped. It looks like it's all blue skies and butterflies again, because the video's over. So, thanks for watching, and see you next time.